Unfortunately, it's time for me to sell this Made in Holland PDF lathe. And with the help of the internet, I now know that PDF stands for Precisische Draaibankenfabriek. And they were made in Zoetermeer, above a dairy factory. And I guess that's all I know. So this is definitely not a Peugeot. The rather large cabinet or stand, that's original. But unfortunately the same cannot be said for the countershaft. For some reason the original countershaft was replaced with a part of a bicycle frame. This here is a bottom bracket. It's kinda nice, cute. Not sure why they did this, probably the original got lost. And they also had to grind in a hole to make room for the belt. I guess this setup is a little bit smaller than the original. But yeah, I would have preferred the original. This belt, by the way, is completely toast. I did buy a new one. But of course, I got, I ordered the wrong one. Or maybe they sent me the wrong one. I don't remember. Inside the cabinet is the two-phase motor. And as you can see, it's not the best setup. It doesn't look very safe, but I don't believe I ever had this thing running on camera, so to make this video a little bit more interesting, that's what I'm going to try out next. Alright, I'm hooking up the power lead. If anybody sees smoke, please yell. Nothing. It must be switched off. Well, it runs. It got a metal on-off switch, not my favorite kind. Well, I guess it looks vintage. This, by the way, is a Pratt Burnett chuck. I think 125 millimeters or 5 inches. Here we go. Belt is so dodgy. I believe the headstock is still fine, and it doesn't have any bronze bearings. It's got roller bearings or some other kind of industrial bearing. You can forget about power feeding the carriage. It needs a complete overhaul. Plenty of play here, and this cross light also no longer works. All Challengers for the same price. This lathe desperately needs a new lead screw, and I'll show you the problem. Originally this lathe would have a handle in this location, and this handle would have a gear or a pinion gear that would sit on the lead screw, and with this handle you can move the carriage. So basically it would use the lead screw as a rack. It is kinda original, but it did cause a whole lot of wear on the lead screw. It still works, but don't expect any kind of precision. I always thought that this lathe had a strange half-nut construction. It kinda looks homemade, but it certainly isn't. And originally there would have been a piece of tin that would protect the half nut, and it would extend all the way, or for some part over the waist, and it could then slide underneath the headstock. And as you can see, there's plenty of room underneath the headstock. The weirdly offset tailstock might still be the best part of this weird machine, and I believe it is more stable too. Oh, and for your information, the lathe doesn't come with any tooling whatsoever. The lathe does come with a nice and sturdy steady rest, almost brand new, and also a traveling steady, and a bunch of chain gears. Not sure if this is a complete set. The reverse jaws for the chuck, and last but not least, a chuck key. Since I mentioned the chain gears, I should also tell you there is some damage on this this big gear here. So that will be a challenge to fix. And in the spirit of fairness and openness, I did discover a crack here in the headstock, and that's for the counter shaft for the back gear. And I was thinking I could maybe install a donut here that would fit over the axle and then bolt it to the headstock. I think that might be a better idea than brazing, because then you will also be brazing the shaft. But yeah, what do I know? It's a problem for the next owner. So if you are interested in this made in Holland weird looking PDF lathe, you should check out my advertisement on the Marktplaats website. I will post a link. I believe this oddball should be preserved for the next generations. Unfortunately, it will not be me because of health issues. I thought I had sold this lathe, but that deal kind of fell through. So I decided to take the lathe off its stand and bring the stand to the scrap metal place. Something I was planning to do anyway, because the original stand is kind of damaged. And it should make it easier to sell this lathe and make some room in the barn for some other projects. You can easily run this lathe from a frequency drive and a 3-phase motor. As you can see, I removed the motor from the cabinet, and to my surprise it's only a 220 unit. And the capacitor is also a bit sticky. Not sure if that is old tape or if the electrolyte is leaking out. Anyway, I will include this 3-phase motor in the deal. It's from MES in Czechoslovakia, and it should be able to run the lathe without any problems, although you will have to sort out the wiring yourself. Anyway, it's time for me to bring this stand outside and make room for my vintage car. And to sweeten the deal a bit, I'm going to throw in a couple of these old Allen Bradley frequency drives. They're from the 80s and make a whole lot of noise, but one of them should still work, and I believe the motor is 3-phase. It might come in handy for the next owner. And by the way, I'm planning to sell a whole lot more of my machining shit, and I'm hoping to raise enough money to start a new career as a videographer. That'll be a change.